TLRY, really, I'm using nothing here on chart. You can still see it's kind of bullish. What's happening today? Tupperware, not done, right? Okay, so this is shorts that take a while to unwind. It's a volatile product, but so far it has really, I mean, you can't even see this anymore. It has really performed and stuck the landing. PLTR is still doing well. So there are still some, what I'm going to consider swings that were way oversold that are really still worth it. All right, so we got some elevated levels here in Tupperware. It's above 335 and the 50-week. The ones that have been recommended that still look really good. KWEB, obviously above the 55. BABA. Okay, this is the 50, not 55, forgive me. This is the 50, and it is clearly above, right? So it's tough, I know. Hold your nose or just look away, call spreads, whatever. But that's absolutely still in play for the China plays. Yep. NEO hasn't stopped going up. JD hasn't stopped going up. Even Nicola is supported. Looks like nothing happened to these plays yesterday. They had a one and done. I think we're going to have, again, an opportunity to retest these bulls. But right now, BABA is nicely bullish with KWEB. Yeah, congrats on your NEO. It just has not even, I don't know, thought about. Look at this. That's a phenomenal move, right? Beautiful scoop. And then this closed higher, very impressive. 5-bar rule goes into effect, right? For me, after 5 bars, it typically takes a pause. I'm maybe, you know, best case, we get up to this 14 even and they take some off. We've already hit it pre-market. 14.19 was pre-market. But the strongest is the KWEB. The China proxies are no joke. We saw the option flow come in and it has just continued beautifully. Tag your it inside. Sorry. Tag your it, came back and got supported. Again, tag your it, I'm talking about the 50, inside. And this is it. This is clearly going to close above the 50. So China plays and stimulus, they go hand in hand. BABA on its way to 99.70. Unity continues to digest sideways for literally 7 weeks. 7 weeks. Zoom is doing okay too. Here's your 74.41. We had a big shake yesterday, did not even fill the gap, and now it's back into sideways. So not tech. TREX, I still like this. It's really nice for building materials. To me, it's oversold, right? So we've got so many building material plays that are hot fire flames. But look at TREX here, and it finally got above all the moving averages. So I still think that one's fine. What's really going on with the Chinese EV plays, right? So there is China stimulus, right? And there is, you know, fundamentals. In other words, they're doing well. There is short covering, like I'm not, and option positioning. Like, look at these. This was massive inverse head and shoulder, and then boom, and then it's just continued. Same thing with XPEV. Gap up, cannot still like really ascertain what's going on here as it relates to the size of the money that's coming in here. So for example, the first 30 minutes, 11.6 million right here in XPEV. So obviously that's not sustainable, but I really would like to, if I was to say what's the real reason these Chinese EV plays have exploded higher, and we've been on this early and often, I would say, I don't really know. I know Chinese stimulus is very important, but that kind of news started hitting only recently, right? Literally just started, and I wrote about this specifically, KWEB and BABA, 3 reports of Chinese stimulus, again yesterday, again this morning. I get why they're going up. I'm not quite sure why EV led the bandwagon, except that Toyota came out with this stunning report, and that just lit a fire under EV. That's the best I can come up with. I mean, it just lit a fire. And then we have short covering, right? Anyway, 14 would be where I think it gets a little bit soft. Oh my God, TWLO is back. look at that move. If then we could get some follow through, I would be absolutely shocked, but that's in a squeeze. Yep. So TWLO is needing to get above 66. Look at that spike higher, got shy. It is having a heck of a time getting above this, isn't it? Look at that, massive. So when it does get there, it'll be a nice follow through. Baidu is very, very nice. Baba is obviously the go-to favorite, but remember 100.47, and what does it do? A little shake and bake. And then of course, KWEB and JD. Those are absolutely the go-to plays for chases. Otherwise, swings, you got plenty of options in there to find something. My recommendation was a call spread just because it can be so choppy. TM is about ready to break out 167. Terrible options, but it looks fabulous, right? All it did was have a very sharp profit taking, and then it pulled back shallow right to that Keltner, and now here's that breakout area. So EV is still hot. This is better. JD, it's already like this is the week. Finally. So basically it has that 10 and 21. It's now going to close above. That's actually much better looking. Also above the 100 day. So that's a nice crossover. Tons and tons of stuff popping up, but will they hold, right? I mean, this is already down 11%, right? Since the open, 370 to 314. That's a, a good 10% pullback. So they're very, very tough and squirrely. Let's start with the VNO and such REITs because they look so boring, but they're still working. This was recommended on this massive explosion higher, actually before, and luckily it traveled all the way up to the 200, digested well, and it continues to travel at a beautiful 45-degree angle. This is obviously the 50-week. Typically, we get some digestion here. I haven't even updated this with charts, but it is doing phenomenally well. Let's do this. So 22. Wouldn't be surprised if we get some chop into 2021, but this beautiful green has basically been on this premise of sell the rumor, buy the news of a CRE, collapse. Anyway, they're going to have time now to kind of work off some of this drama, it seems, with recession delayed, and that became the narrative. Anyway, I still like VNO. I don't think there is a problem with this digesting here. Here's the 10-week on its way up to, 26.76 this summer. That has not changed, right? Now, depending on your horse, the other two that look identical, and they're also behemoths, right, in the space, especially SL Green, is SL Green and has a very, very similar look and trajectory. And I would say you kind of want to keep this 35.80, which is the 50-week also, just conveniently. And in time, this should move back up to about 44.65. So SL Green is in a spot of coming up off the bottom as well. So, here's your 10-week though. Can there be some shimmy? Absolutely. That's what I mean by protect these swing longs, even if you have some conviction. The other is Boston Properties, BXP. That looks fabulous, but again, it's hitting its head at 67. So it really, really needs to get above. So those are the REITs. Okay, so we have IPI, which has also been a recommendation in this kind of value space, literally June 1st, shockingly June 1st, and it's working, right? I don't bottom tick very often or top tick very often, but I get the meat of a move. This was gorgeous, little pullback. I wasn't surprised. Look at that trend line, stunning. And it has continued, and I said, let it digest a few weeks, remember? Literally, I said, it has to digest so the 10 and 20 can cross over. It got above, it's moving higher. It's very, very nice. Here's the 200. So IPI was my horse, but maybe you went with, Mosaic, or maybe you went with CF. They all look good. Okay. And if you get levels, you want me to let you know. DBA is more of a trend play, in my humble opinion, once it gets and stays above this 21.52. It's been a swing, but nonetheless, it is doing fabulously, right? Oh, NTR. Yeah, that looked really good. So Arxon went with NTR. It has some shake and bakes of size, and it gets right back up. So as long as this can stay above 2152, I think this is a gorgeous trend, even though it hasn't taken out the highs, and I'm usually a trend follower. Once it gets and stays above the highs, that's when I get really excited about it. I think this is good. It also goes with my inflation theme. So DBA for me and IPI, Archna has NTR. Look at that, gorgeous. We reviewed that, right? Tight, tight, tight. Look at that Bollinger Band. Beautiful explosion higher, beautiful above the 55 day into the 100, above it, on its way to 72. Look at this breakout. Look at this big, beautiful breakout. That's stunning, right? So no problem. All of them are doing well. Again, this is all that sector rotation, basket fishing. NTR, if you like, is doing well as long as it stays above 66.81. I'm going to go completely to a trend idea, then I'm going to go back to swings. So stick with me. But remember, coal. I think coal's actually going to come back. I know Tim's a big believer in this. I had recommended a few, right? 3 in particular. CEIX is going to be a while. This to me is a multi-year holding. I do not see this as a swing. I do not see this as a chase. I see this as hard assets. It's a great play. BTU has worked really hard on its debt stack. Price has gone nowhere. It's been an exercise in frustration. It had disappointing earnings. It's still below 2261, which is monthly, and it has to get above 2261 to continue higher. When it does, I think it's going to get picked up and it will continue. But this is one of those where CCJ is another one, right? Where it's sideways. Recommended that in November of 2020. You can't even see it. It was way the heck down here. Same thing with BTU. Recommended this when it was way the heck down here. So the point is, these are trends with massive volatility, but in time, I really think that we're on the right side of the trade. So trends are the forget it and set it, right? So that's CCJ, and I also believe BTU and CEIX and ARLP, if it behaves, and I know it's down, I was late to get into this. It wasn't like, here, that I was way late to get into this. The point is now it's looking constructive, like it wants to come up off the bottom. Okay, so coal is another idea. Now, in the energy space, okay, now, where am I on this June 1st? I have to go over it because this was also a swing recommendation. If you recall, I had XME very, very solidly on that June 1st move, right? Morningstar reversal on a daily, but more specifically, I said must defend 44.20. That's a long, it was literally pre-market on June 1st. And here we are. It's been slow to move higher, but it has worked. And the same thing with copper, right? I said it has to stay above 34.46. Same exact pattern. That was May 31st, and that was June 1st when I talked about it. And same thing with steel, right? That was exactly the exact same level, 56.30. Here's 31st, and here's literally pre-market on the 1st. All of that worked. Very, very important. So refiners, really just the 3 weeks have they exploded higher with that crack ETF, and I don't think it's done. Bitcoin has definitely made a huge spike here, right here. That was when the market started to get volatility, and then they just rotated into Bitcoin solidly. It is still on support, and you get a whole bunch of plays within that space, right? From the MSTRs to the RIOTs, to the MARAs, to the HUT, to the HIVE. Look at this. I mean, they just went straight up. Now, here's the problem, right? Bitcoin can roll over and they'll all follow, but there was an advantage to all of those Bitcoin proxies. And the Bitcoin proxy advantage was very simply that liquidity was flowing into Bitcoin. Number one was based on liquidity. Number two was based on the fact that I had seen a ginormous call spread, 25 by 45 thousand. And the size of the contracts was a few 100,000. So it was a whale. So it's putting stabilization in Bitcoin, the underlying. And then the number three reason was a short covering rally because of hedge funds, right? So all of that produced outsized move. Coin was also among, and I actually didn't even get excited about this until it was 70. Okay, so now let's go over into some of the junior tech, because that has been where there has been a lot of excitement that then petered out. except if it was AI related. So Adobe, right? That was a ginormous move, very, very strongly recommended. And then it followed through, and then it followed through, and then it petered out, and then it, like earnings were really good. Now, this is a little extended. I'm not bearish Adobe. I think Adobe will digest here, unfortunately, for a while. And then once it gets above, it's going to be a nice trend. So let me just put that in perspective for you. So for me, I think Adobe is absolutely a nice future trend. It has been a phenomenal outperformer as a swing. No edge in earnings. It happened to hold really well. But this is my concern, is that we're going to go sideways in Adobe. It's also my concern with PLTR. I think PLTR was, and I mentioned it the day it came out for earnings, around $9, that the size of volume coming into that play was ridiculous. It was Druckenmiller size. I'm telling you, it was huge. So it has absolutely performed technically. It's even gotten a little bit above, but I think this is going to be in digestion for a while. So does this set it up as a further swing trade? Yeah, as long as it holds here, it can go to here. But I actually think that this is going to be kind of like an Adobe, where it doesn't really go down very much, but it also has already exhausted most of its momentum. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to look for the new thing, right? That's always, and I don't mean a chase time frame. I'm talking about, something that's going to last for a while. ZS was a fabulous recommendation on this trend line that bounced up on a weekly and has held solidly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. I mean, a beautiful thing. And it's digesting beautifully. And it looks like it wants to go higher, but it hasn't. So even though I really like ZS and I really like Crowd, and there are other plays that have done well, they've just gone sideways. So the risk reward in holding stuff that goes sideways is a little frustrating. But I'm going to always look for, what's moving. And I transitioned obviously into the KWEB and the BABA, strongly on the Chinese stimulus. And I still think that looks great. So my risk reward, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be more focused on stuff that has government backing and financial engineering. And unfortunately, that's what China's doing. And it's helping their stock market. Our Chinese ADRs. It isn't really helping their stock market. It potentially will, but it's definitely helping our Chinese ADRs. Some plays in earnings might be phenomenal and some might be disappointing. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, technically, this isn't in play until it can get above, right? Same thing with net, and they are just not ready. So we need another little emphasis to get these off center. Google absolutely made it up to that gap fill of 133. Very bullish, engulfing inside week breakout on earnings. I never know what earnings are going to do. But if I expect volatility, right, I'm going to be looking more for not the short coverings junk, right? I mean, TUP was great. TLRY is great. There's still going to be these one-off plays, but they're not trend reversals. They're not swing of high conviction. They're just basically this thesis of hedge fund short covering. What's going to be the next one? I don't know. I got to find a good chart, right? Recently added stuff, IP, great, beautiful. We're here. Can it follow through? It might need to digest here for a while, right? But IP was absolutely stunning. Recent post earnings recommendation right here. So as far as I'm concerned, the most recent stuff is the one that you need to protect the most. IP has already made it up to 36.43. Careful. 3M has absolutely made it up to the 200-day. Beautiful. I mean, that's just okay. Now we need follow through. And if we get some volatility, I would just expect that they start to do this channel surf thing. Once we're back above 112.33, we're off to the races. So value still has a nice play of bottom fishing, but we need follow through. And then there are stuff that I haven't even, seriously even sized up in a while because they just are still working, but they need time. Oops, sorry. TREX. This is a fabulous breakout inside. And then I'm like, this looks really good as long as it holds, and it moved higher inside. It's still working. I like this one better. Like this still has room to the 78 area if we can digest. But keep in mind, we break 66.66, for example, we're going to go right back into 62.63. So that's where you defend against. If you're bullish to 78, you want to hold this. Just make sure you are in the right, the trend is your friend. You do not break down this 10 week, right? This is where you've got 100 and 200 day moving week moving average. And then you also have a week support level. Looks great. It's bullish above. Just make sure it does not reverse there. So it all depends on your time frame. I hope that makes sense. I, wanted to go over as many as I could in the time that I had. But what else? Good morning, Andre. All right, so hold on. Let me just see what else. Yeah, Comcast is still perfectly fine. Yep. And that's another one that was recently recommended. I loved it. And I was like, I know this is boring, but it worked out. So Comcast, IP, 3M. Yep, Comcast did a little selling yesterday. Great recommendation right here. Boring, but I really liked it. And then it did have a little selling, but it was so gentle. And then it's popped right back up to that 45.87. They're still fine. And then most speculative recent suggestions were based on unusual option activity. And I had that updated yesterday. Yes, I've already updated Caterpillar, which is, I don't think it's going to do much above or to get above 266 yet. When this gets above 266, then woohoo, that is very, very different. But Caterpillar was recommended literally pre-market June 1st, and it did this the next day. It was phenomenal. Digested and moved higher. Remember the 260 November calls? They took them off at 250. They didn't even wait. They literally tagged here, and all that big option order was taken off the print. They took their profits, didn't stick around for any more. And here we are, the 260 that they originally had in there. Anyway, Amazon's still, if it can hold that 126 on the 10 week, then that's still bullish. Yes, I forgot the retailers. I'm sorry, the big box retailers. Costco, I also think is kind of running into, I don't want to call it fumes, but into potential pullback. So Airbnb and Costco, absolutely the same kind of condition where they have run up very, very strong into the hot sun. And this is where I think they digest. This is already out of the way for earnings for ETFs in other countries. So EWJ, I like. Long since April, really like that one. And EWZ, which is Brazil, I still think is fine. Datadog was another one. It's, again, gone sideways for basically 2 weeks, which makes it tough. The nat gas plays that I really like, the EQT and ANZ LPG. Oh my God, they look fabulous. So that's definitely strong, right? I think that those are pretty much the strongest ones that I know. Someone else was in SWN, maybe that was Ann too, but I'm less excited. But I like the EQT. That's definitely a nice one. Yeah, PDD was Brian's, very nice, very, very, very nice. So this is gorgeous because it's a gap fill, right? So it was a nice price target, and now it's above. That needs to be support. It's going to be tough. That's Keltner, but still gorgeous.